Chapter of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners. The time is 9:02 a.m. on June 12th, 2020. I'm calling to order the special meeting of the board. The process we're using for today's meeting is authorized by Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order N-2920, which he issued on March 17 to address the COVID-19 public health emergency. The meeting is occurring by video conference with all board members, our president and CEO, and the Housing Commission staff participating by video. Our general counsel is participating by telephone. For the record, I will ask each board member to indicate your presence as I say your name. Commissioner Dion Akers.
Here.
Commissioner Maggie Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Johanna Hester.
Here.
Commissioner Keely Hubbard. Commissioner Mitch Mitchell.
Here.
Thank you all. Our chairperson, Stephanie Benvenuto, is not with us today as she's on maternity leave. We send her our best wishes, and the baby is very, very cute. She's been posting pictures of it. No members of the public are in attendance. However, members of the public may watch the video conference and hear the audio of today's meeting, which is being streamed live online. The agenda for today's meeting included a link to the website for the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners, where the public can access live streaming for today's meeting. The public has been provided with an alternative opportunity to provide comments to the board through an online comment form. A link to this form is also included on the agenda for today's meeting, which was posted to the San Diego Housing Commission website, www.sdhc.org, on Thursday, June 4th, 2020. A revised agenda was posted to the Housing Commission website on June 10th, 2020. It added a workshop and an informational report for today's meeting. The agenda and the public comment form explained that comments about items on the agenda will be read into the record if they were submitted by 4 p.m. yesterday, Thursday, June 11th. In addition, non-agenda public comments submitted by 8 o'clock this morning will be read into the record. No non-agenda public comments were submitted for today's meeting. Now I'll ask any commissioners if they would like to make any comments. No comments from the commissioners. The next item on our agenda is the report from the president and CEO. Rick, all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate it. As always, I've got a few comments to make based on what's happened since the last board meeting of the Housing Commission. And we've got a report up on the board that I don't think needs to be there. Thank you. I've got 6 brief items to relate to you with your indulgence, please. The first has to do with a statement regarding racial equity that I sent out on June the 4th, representing not just me and staff of this board as well. And as this board is aware, in recent weeks, a national conversation about addressing systemic racism has emerged in response to the tragic death of George Floyd in Minnesota. On behalf of the Housing Commission, I shared my thoughts in a statement on June the 4th. The Housing Commission grieves the loss of George Floyd and so many others before him. As an agency, we continue to work for equity and opportunity for people of color. It struck me personally that both Floyd and I are North Carolina natives, and the opportunities I've had, he didn't have. And that should not be the way it should be. And just wanted to point out with this statement that our staff stands behind this board and our community here in San Diego. My full statement was mailed to each of you on June the 4th and is available on our website for anyone who wants to see it, www.sdhc.org. And I'll ask you all as I go through these 6 points, if you have any questions or comments, please do interrupt me. I'd be glad to respond. The second issue is the Housing Commission plans for eventually returning to the office, staff that is. As the city continues to gradually emerge from restrictions due to COVID-19, I'd like to update the board about our next steps as an agency. We are planning and making decisions with a high level of caution and deliberation as we focus on the safety and well-being of our staff and their families. At the same time, we continue to provide high-quality service to our customers during this challenging time. We know that when we return to the office, that return will be significantly different from what existed before staff began working remotely in March. I think whatever you call this interim time period, whenever normal returns, it's going to be a new normal. We're not going to go back to the old normal because, quite frankly, things have worked so well over the past 3 months. We're working with a consultant now to make adjustments to workspaces to provide protection for our staff when they do return to the office. We also continue to obtain the necessary supplies such as hand sanitizers for staff protection upon staff return. I'll point out that this week, we also surveyed staff to hear directly from them about their perspectives and experiences while working from home. That survey came in yesterday. It was quite revealing and quite positive. And if any of you have questions or would like to talk about it, I would ask you to contact Jeff Davis. I'm not sure we've fully analyzed all the responses yet, but I talked with Jeff about it briefly yesterday, and it's going to give us a lot of food for thought from our folks on what the new normal is going to be. Our senior leadership continues to meet regularly to review current and anticipated circumstances and to plan for the return to the office. I'll point out, as I pointed out to staff, we're not going to rush to return. And that's not only because of safety issues, it's because, and I want to emphasize this, our outstanding staff has maintained an exceptionally high level of productivity in the last 2 to 3 months, with the great majority of our staff working from home. We've had some essential folks on duty, management and maintenance of the properties we own, and Lisa and her folks down at the convention center are dealing with the homelessness issue. But probably up to about 80% of our staff have worked from home over the last 3 months. And everyone, whether they're essential on site or whether they're at home, like a lot of us are, the work has been outstanding. And I want to point that out to you. The staff has sometimes even exceeded their productivity at home. So that's going to inform us as we go ahead to looking for more flexible work environments. That's going to allow for some telecommuting in some of our departments. We're going to have the potential to improve the quality of life of our staff, as well as the potential to save some money for the organization. We're going to continue to get the job done with the new normal. I've heard it said that this event, the COVID event, has probably accelerated the use of electronics in communications and working and doing work, including what we're doing right now, by probably 10 years or more. This is probably what we would have naturally evolved into by about 2030. And the fact that we're there now is just remarkable. So I want to point that out to you and ask you, as you see and come in contact with staff, let them know I said that, please. Third item, on June the 2nd, I participated in a press conference at a city council event dealing with the city's COVID-19 rental assistance program and our involvement in helping to design that program. And this is an item that was being funded out of the CARES Act money coming to the city from the federal government that the city has worked with us to develop without coming through this commission, but will be implemented the 1st of July. We will be administering an emergency COVID-19 rental assistance program for the city, which you're going to hear more about during a workshop at the end of the meeting this morning. On June the 2nd, I joined Councilmember Chris Ward who proposed this program, and Councilmember Monica Montgomery at a news conference to announce the proposed program just prior to the City Council June the 2nd meeting. Representatives from the Southern California Rental Housing Association and also Unite Here Local 30, the San Diego Hotel and Food Services Workers Union, also participated in the news conference. The City Council approved the program on June the 2nd and designated $15.1 million for the program in the city budget, which was approved on June the 8th. City Council also approved, that's one thing that happened on June the 2nd. Also on June the 2nd, the City Council approved the Housing Commission's preservation study, which we've just finished. The Housing Commission released a new report for the council that analyzes rental housing in the city of San Diego and recommends 10 strategies to help keep thousands of rental housing units affordable for low-income families. This was an idea that came from Council President Georgette Gomez. She's championed housing preservation for years and asked us last year to develop this type of analysis. I joined Council President Gomez and Council Member Monica Montgomery on May the 28th at a news conference to announce our report. The City Council on June the 2nd, the City Council unanimously approved this report titled, quote, Preserving Affordable Housing in the City of San Diego. The council also then referred the report to the Land Use and Housing Committee for further action. This report basically provides 3 bits of information. First is a comprehensive inventory of the current housing in the city of San Diego. And let me stop there for a minute and point out that we are the only city that I'm aware of in this country that's done an analysis of the totality of affordable housing available in the city. Not only does this report look at deed-restricted affordable housing, which has governmental attachments to it because of subsidy arrangements, but it also analyzes what's called NOAH, N-O-A-H, naturally occurring affordable housing, where that stands. I'll point out as an aside that the city has lost about half of its NOAH units to workings of the marketplace over the last 20 years, since 2000, by virtue of population and economic growth and lack of housing growth to keep up. You look at some other parts of the state up in the Bay Area, and much worse than that. So what this report does is an inventory of what our current housing in the city is, a review of best practices that other cities have implemented, and strategies to preserve affordability in the years ahead. This report is available in the Media Center on our website. I encourage you to take a look. This is a very significant step forward as we address the housing crisis going forward in San Diego. And I want to commend our policy and real estate staff for the wonderful work putting this study together. Fifth item, Mr. Chairman, is that on June the 10th, we had a mid-city apartments groundbreaking, and we did it in virtual form. First time that's ever happened too. Addressing the housing crisis requires a balance between preserving existing affordable housing and creating new affordable units. We still need to create new, even if we preserve what we've got. And this week, we celebrated the groundbreaking for new construction that will add 192 affordable apartments for families and seniors in the mid-city area. Our Chief of Staff, Jeff Davis, spoke at the unique groundbreaking that occurred by video conference because of the COVID-19 issue. Additional speakers in this virtual groundbreaking included Assemblymember Todd Gloria, Council President Georgette Gomez, County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, and representatives from Chelsea Investment Corporation, Price Philanthropies Foundation, and the Serving Seniors Organization. The Housing Commission was awarded some $6.7 million in a loan for the development of 115 affordable apartments for seniors that are a part of this property. We also authorized the issuance of up to $46 million in multifamily housing revenue bonds to support the construction of the senior apartments and also an additional 77 affordable units for families. These housing units will serve households with up to 60% of the San Diego area median income. The development previously was known as East Block Family and Senior Apartments. Now it's called Mid-City Family and Senior Apartments. And my thanks very much go to the staff and our real estate division for their wonderful work on this project, as always. Those are the first 5 reports, Mr. Chairman. And I would also like to ask Councilor Chuck Christensen to talk about the 6th item, which is the dismissal of a lawsuit against the Housing Commission that by a judge has occurred just lately. Chuck, if you would please, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rick. Yeah, I'm pleased to inform the board that the case of Baker versus the City of San Diego, the County of San Diego, the Housing Commission, Mr. Gentry, and all of the board members has been dismissed. The dismissal as to Mr. Gentry and all of our board members is without leave to amend the complaint, so they cannot bring you back in. The dismissal of the city, the county, and the Housing Commission itself is with leave to amend, which means that they can try to state additional facts within the complaint that would serve to correct the deficiencies that were in the original complaint. The court agreed with the motion filed by the Housing Commission and the law that was submitted, and agreed that the case should be dismissed. So we're very pleased with that, and we'll certainly keep you apprised of any future developments in connection with the case.
And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the special meetings of May 1st, 2020 and May 15th, 2020. Do any commissioners wish to make any changes to the minutes, or do I have a motion? And if I could ask for the format here, when you make a motion or a second, if you could raise your hand on camera just so it's easier to spot who's saying what.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Davis and
Second.
by Commissioner Mitchell. Thank you. To approve the minutes from the special meetings of May 1st and May 15th. For the record, I will ask each commissioner to say your vote on the motion when I state your name. Commissioner Dion Akers.
Approved.
Commissioner Davis.
Approved.
Commissioner Hester.
Approved.
Commissioner, great. Commissioner Hubbard
Aye.
and Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
All commissioners have voted in favor of the motion. No opposition. I vote in favor of the motion, which carries unanimously. Moving on, I'm proposing that the following items be placed on the consent agenda for approval this morning. Item 102, contract renewal for fiscal year 2021, Regional Task Force on Homeless. You know what, Chuck, do I have to read the whole item, or can I just do by item?
No, you can just do by item number. That's
Thank you. Item 102, 103, and 105. No public comments were submitted for these items. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Commissioner Hubbard, I propose we move.
Okay.
Second.
And do I have a second?
Second by Commissioner Mitchell.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Hubbard and a second by Commissioner Mitchell to approve the consent agenda. For the record, I will ask each commissioner to say your vote on the motion when I state your name. Commissioner Akers.
Approved.
Commissioner Davis.
Approved.
Commissioner Hester.
Approved.
Commissioner Hubbard.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
All commissioners have voted in favor of the motion and no commissioners have opposed. I vote in favor of the motion, which carries unanimously. We will now proceed to the presentations for today. The PowerPoint presentations were emailed to commissioners yesterday, June 11th, and are posted on the Housing Commission website. Item 100, the first item is item 100, final bond authorization for Courthouse Commons. No public comments were submitted for item 100. Housing Commission Vice President of Multifamily Housing Finance, Colin Miller, will be presenting this item. Colin, you can begin when you are ready.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. I'll wait till the PowerPoint comes up. And sorry, my screen is, there we go. The item before you today is a request to take the final steps to issue up to $24 million in multifamily housing revenue bonds for the construction of Courthouse Commons, a proposed 82-unit multifamily development to be located at 220 West Broadway in the downtown civic core of Council District 3. This mixed-use project will have 41 affordable units that will remain affordable for 55 years. In addition, staff requests City Council hold a Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, or TEFRA, public hearing and adopt a resolution approving the issuance of multifamily housing revenue bonds. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thanks. Courthouse Commons, the Courthouse Commons project is located at 220 West Broadway in the civic core as shown on the map in Council District 3 and is part of a larger tower development consisting of a total of 431 total units. The site was home to the former San Diego County Superior Court Central Courthouse, which has been demolished, leaving the site vacant. Next slide, please. The project's prime location in the civic core results in excellent walkability to mass transit, including a MTS trolley stop and a Santa Fe train depot station, as well as dining, shopping, and employment opportunities for future residents. The development will provide exceptional amenities, including a rooftop lounge with pool and spa, outdoor terrace with barbecue and gathering space, a fitness center, and other amenities. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, the Courthouse Commons project is part of the larger tower shown here in the architect's rendering of the entire project. Next slide. In total, there will be 431 residential units, approximately 235,000 square feet of office space, and 17,000 square feet of retail space, in addition to 5 levels of underground parking. This project this project comprises of 82 units located within this tower. Next slide, please. To summarize the developer's request, you are considering approvals to take the final steps to issue up to $24 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds, as well as hold a TEFRA hearing. Approval of the bond issuance and TEFRA resolutions does not commit the housing authority to issue bonds. The bonds would not constitute a debt of the city. If bonds are ultimately issued for the project, the bonds will not financially obligate the city, housing authority, or housing commission because the security for the repayment of the bonds will be limited to specific private revenue sources of the project. Additionally, I'd like to point out that no housing commission loan funds are being requested for this project. Next slide, please. The developer of the project will be Holland Development LLC. The Holland Partner Group currently has assets under management and in development of approximately $12 billion in 50,000 apartment units across the Western U.S. Holland Partner Group's Southern California office currently has 8 developments totaling more than 2,500 units under development. The project architect, Carrier Johnson, is an international award-winning firm with over 40 years of experience. The rest of the team is shown on this slide. Next slide, please. The total development cost for the project will be $40.85 million, which is approximately $498,000 per unit. That will be financed with a combination of a permanent loan, which is funded with the tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds, and developer equity. Additionally, this project will be subject to pay state prevailing wage due to the disposition development agreement with the county for the site. Next slide, please. Under the proposed financing, 41 affordable units will be rent restricted to tenants up to 50% of area median income. Eligible households and individuals will have incomes ranging from $37,450 up to $53,500 based on the 2019 rent and income chart. The other 41 units will be unrestricted market rate units. If approved today, the item will be, next slide, please. If approved today, the item will be presented to the Housing Authority on June 16th. The developer would then expect to close financing in September. Due to the timing required to secure the financing for the remaining 349 units in the tower, the developer anticipates renovations, securing those funds and beginning renovations in April of 2020. Next slide, please. This concludes the presentation. I'm available to answer any questions along with representatives from the development team. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Colin? Thank you very much, Colin.
Yeah.
If there are no questions, do we have a motion on this item?
So moved.
I'll make the motion on the item. Commissioner Mitchell.
Great. We have a motion by Commissioner Mitchell and a second by Commissioner Davis to approve item 100. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Commissioner Akers,
I approve.
Commissioner Davis,
Approve.
Commissioner Hester,
I approve.
Commissioner Hubbard,
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
All commissioners have voted in favor of the motion and none are opposed. I also vote in favor of the motion, which carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 101, preliminary bond authorization for Mississippi El Cajon Boulevard Apartments. No public comments were submitted for item 101. Colin will also be presenting this item. Colin, you may go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning again. The item before you today is, sorry, next slide, please. Thank you.
Pardon me. Can I jump in just real quick? Ryan, I apologize for my notes. Will you remind me which items we placed on consent? I had made a note that this item was on consent, so I may be wrong.
Yes, 1 second. It is items.
102, 103, and 105.
There you go.
Thank you. I apologize. Please continue.
No problem.
Thank you. The item before you today is a request to take the initial steps to issue multifamily housing revenue bonds for the new construction of Mississippi ECB apartments. Please note that the executive summary has a typographical error. The project is requesting $12.5 million in bonds, not the $12.15 million as listed. Additionally, the total bond authorization amount requested is $16.5 million, not $16.15 as shown in the executive summary. The staff report, TEFRA notice, and resolutions all show the correct amount of $12.5 million, and $16.5 million respectively. My apologies for the typographical error. Staff is requesting that the Housing Commission recommend the Housing Authority issue a bond inducement resolution for up to $16.5 million in multifamily housing revenue bonds, authorize an application and subsequent applications if necessary to SDLAC, and approve the financing team of QTech Rock as bond counsel and CSG advisors as the financial advisor. Next slide, please. Additionally, staff recommend authorizing the president and CEO or designee to execute any and all documents necessary to implement the transaction in a form approved by general counsel and or bond counsel. And finally, that the Housing Commission recommend that the City Council hold a Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, public hearing, and adopt a resolution approving the issuance of multifamily housing revenue bonds in the amounts shown. Next slide, please. The proposed project is a 61-unit transit-oriented mixed-use new construction affordable housing development located at 2139 El Cajon Boulevard in the University Heights area of Council District 3. There will be 24 studio, 24 one-bedroom, and 12 two-bedroom affordable units at 50% and 80% of area median income, as well as one manager's unit. The proposed development will qualify for low-income housing tax credits under TCAC's new regulation change that allows for income averaging. As such, the average affordability level is under 60% of AMI, and all units will be restricted for 55 years. This development was made possible in part due to the financing provided by Floyd and Lennar, two market rate developers who will provide a $9.6 million loan to the development through National Housing Corporation, a San Marcos-based affordable housing nonprofit. In exchange for this investment, Trestle Development will construct affordable housing units that will satisfy the City of San Diego's density bonus requirements for both market rate developments by Floyd and Lennar, located at 4469 Ohio Street and 4355 Park Boulevard, respectively. Amenities of the development will include an elevator, community room, outdoor decks on the 3rd and 5th floors, as well as leasing office and dedicated bicycle storage. Next slide, please. To summarize the developer's request, you are considering approvals to take the preliminary steps to issue up to $16.5 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds. This is split between $12.5 million in tax-exempt and 4% $4 million in taxable. No Housing Commission loan funds are being requested. Approval of the bond issuance and TEFRA resolutions does not commit the Housing Authority to issue bonds. Bonds would not constitute a debt of the city. If bonds are ultimately issued for the project, the bonds will not financially obligate the city, the Housing Authority, or the Housing Commission, because security for the repayment of the bonds will be limited to specific private revenue sources of the project. Next slide, please. The development team consists of Trestle Mississippi LP as the developer, with the general partner being comprised of Trestle Mississippi LLC and National Housing MGP. Redstone is anticipated to serve as the investor limited partner, as well as Hyder Property Management as the property manager and Studio E Architects as the architect of record. Founded in 2013, Trussell Development has developed more than 400 affordable units in California and Washington State. Their most recent affordable project with the Housing Commission is the Nook Apartments, a 91-unit property located in the East Village neighborhood. Next slide, please. As mentioned before, the project is located at 2139 El Cajon Boulevard on the corner of Mississippi and El Cajon in Council District 3, shown here on the map, a few blocks east of Kiddard Hospital for reference. Next slide, please. The project architect, Studio E, has provided these renderings of the proposed 5-story development. Next slide. And a typical floor plan of the building. Next slide. Thank you. The total development cost of the project will be approximately $23 million, which equates to about $378,000 per unit. Permanent sources of funding include a conventional loan, tax credit equity, a loan from the previously mentioned market rate developers, and a developer fee. Next slide, please. As stated earlier in the presentation, units will be restricted at 50 and 80% of area median income for 55 years. Rents will range from $889 to $1,549 per month for a studio and through 2-bedroom units. Eligible households and individuals will have incomes ranging from $37,450 to $68,500 based on the 2019 rent and income chart. Next slide, please. Should you approve these actions, this item will be heard by the Housing Authority on June 16th with a subsequent application to SDLAC for 4% bonds in September. We anticipate that this item will be brought back for final bond-related approvals in January 2021, and that the developer would be able to close financing in January and begin construction, with construction completion occurring 1 year later in January 2022. Next slide, please. Okay, to summarize the developer's request, we're asking for the issuance of $16.5 million in tax-exempt bonds. I want to explain that the developer is responsible for paying all cost of the issuance, and that these bonds will be issued in accordance with the Housing Commission's bond policy. These bonds will not create financial liability to the Housing Commission, Housing Authority, or City, and neither the full faith and credit nor taxing power of the City nor full faith and credit of the Housing Authority will be pledged to the payment of these bonds. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time. This concludes the presentation. I'm available to answer any questions along with representatives from Trussell Development, Dave Allen, and Rob Morgan. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Colin? Yes, Commissioner Hester.
Hi, can you, Colin, can you move back to the last slide?
Yeah, IT, can you help with that?
I wanted to understand the 16.5 million bond issuance is what we're asking the city. What is our responsibility again as Housing Commission in this project?
So the Housing Commission serves as a conduit bond issuer, and so the Housing Commission will should the Housing Commission, should you approve this action and the Housing Authority approve the action on the June 16th meeting, we would then have the developer apply to SDLAC for $16.5 million in bonds. Should they be awarded from the state, then the Housing Commission serves just as a conduit. We do not have any financial liability. This is the repayment of the bonds is strictly based on the project, and as the project spends the next 55 years plus in operations, cash flow from operations repays the mortgage that is created by those bonds. So there's no financial obligation or liability of the Housing Commission or the city.
And this is a new development. It's not a
yeah, correct. This is a new construction. There is an existing building that will be torn down, and then this project will be constructed. So brand new construction. Yes.
And then with regards to the AMI, 50% AMI, if you meet that threshold, then your rent is such as shown on the slide, right? I always get confused if the AMI, if the percentage on next to the AMI is higher or lower, if it covers more people or less people. I always get confused. So at 80% AMI, that means they have higher income,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Correct.
Sorry, that's my level 101 question for the morning.
Happy to answer.
I'm good. It's a great project. Thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions for Colin? Commissioner Akers.
Colin and IT, can you jump back to slide 12? Just review the timeline. Once again, I may have been reading that incorrectly, but it looked like maybe some of the times that were mentioned and what we're looking at. It sounded like, that was the finance closing pushed, looking like it's actually going to be January 21. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, that's my mistake. That's an error. Yeah, the slide is correct. That's an error in my notes.
Thank you. That was it, and I just want to take a quick note of that. Thank you, staff.
Any further questions? Thank you. Yeah, I would just comment that as we're seeing the AMI averaging policy take effect, it is nice to see projects that are able to go into lower AMIs as a result of that policy serve a population that really needs it through that flexibility. So I appreciate that, seeing that play out in this project. This is a great project. That's my comment on it. Do we have a motion on this item? Motion by Commissioner Hester. Is there a second by Commissioner Davis? Thank you. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Commissioner Akers?
I vote yes on the motion.
Commissioner Davis?
I approve.
Commissioner Hester?
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard?
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell? I think Commissioner Mitchell might have been muted there.
Aye. My apologies. Aye.
Thank you. All commissioners have voted in favor of the motion. No commissioners voted in opposition. I also vote in favor of the motion, which carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations to the team that is on this Zoom with us. Item 104, next on the agenda is the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program, HAP, MOU between the City of San Diego and the Housing Commission. No public comments were submitted on item 104. The Housing Commission's Senior Vice President of Homeless Housing Innovations, Lisa Jones, will be presenting this time. Lisa, please begin when you are ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. With me today is Casey Snell, Director of Housing First Administration, and this presentation will provide a brief overview of the funds being awarded to the City of San Diego through the State of California's Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program, or HAP, and will request your approval of a recommendation for the Housing Commission to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the City regarding the administration of a portion of the HAP block grant funding that the City would transfer to the Housing Commission. Next slide, please. In 2019, Governor Newsom signed Assembly Bill 101, which provides state funds to large cities, municipalities, and continuums of care to address the homelessness crisis throughout California. HAP funds may be expended on rental assistance and rapid rehousing programs, operation of emergency shelters and navigation centers, outreach and coordination, and prevention and diversion programs. The City of San Diego was allocated more than $22 million in HAP funds. The state has required that 50% of funds be contractually obligated by May 31st, 2023, and that all HAP funds be completely expended by June 30th, 2025. The proposed HAP MOU will allow the Housing Commission to administer city contracts to provide shelter and services to persons experiencing homelessness in the city. Next slide, please. The Housing Commission has administered the city's homeless shelter and services program since 2010 through an MOU with the city. A similar arrangement would be established to facilitate the Housing Commission's administration of HAP-funded programs. These programs include the city's Safe Parking Program, operated at 3 locations, 3 transitional storage center programs, and the bridge shelter programs within the city. The total amount of city HAP funds to be transferred to the Housing Commission under the MOU is not final at this time. It will be finalized before the execution of the MOU upon mutual agreement of the Housing Commission and the city. Next slide, please. I'm now going to turn it over to Casey Snell.
Good morning. Staff is requesting that the Housing Commission recommend that the Housing Authority of the City of San Diego take the following actions. Approve the execution of an MOU between the city and the Housing Commission
Could
regarding.
you pause for one second? There's, I think, an echo. So if you're not speaking, if you could mute. I don't know if that's just on my end, but yeah.
Okay. Approve the execution of an MOU between the city and the Housing Commission regarding the administration of HAP funding in a form approved by General Counsel, and to transfer a portion of the city's HAP funding to the Housing Commission for one-time uses that address homelessness in compliance with the terms of the HAP block agreement between the city and the state of California's Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency. And authorize the Housing Commission's president and CEO or designee to execute the final negotiated MOU and any and all amendments thereto in a form approved by General Counsel, and to take all actions necessary to implement these approvals. Next slide, please. In addition, staff requests that the Housing Commission recommend that the City Council also approve an MOU between the city and the Housing Commission regarding the administration of HAP funding, and to transfer a portion of the city's HAP funding to the Housing Commission for one-time uses that address homelessness in compliance with the terms of the HAP block agreement between the city and the state of California's Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency, and authorize the mayor or designee to execute an MOU and any and all amendments thereto in a form approved by the city attorney on behalf of the city, and to take all actions necessary to implement these approvals. Next slide. That concludes our presentation. We are available to answer any questions.
Thank you to both of you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Lisa? If there are no questions, do we have a motion on this item?
Commissioner Hubbard, so moved.
And as Commissioner Mitchell, I will second the motion.
Great. We have a motion by Commissioner Hubbard and a second by Commissioner Mitchell to approve item 104. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Commissioner Akers?
I approve.
Commissioner Davis?
I approve.
Commissioner Hester?
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard?
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Aye.
All commissioners have voted in favor of the motion and no opposition. I also vote in favor of the motion, which carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is item 106 regarding the approval of fiscal year 2021 operating agreement for the City of San Diego Bridge Shelters and the MOU between the City of San Diego and the San Diego Housing Commission for the oversight and administration of the city's bridge shelters. One public comment was submitted for this item from Thomas Lovell at Father Joe's Villages. Chuck, do you have that comment? Were you going to read that, or?
I certainly can. The comment from Mr. Lovell was as follows. To the respected members of the SDHC Board of Commissioners, on behalf of Father Joe's Villages, we express our sincere appreciation of our partnership with San Diego Housing Commission, and we thank you for your consideration to the Housing Authority and the City Council to approve an agreement with Father Joe's Villages for continued operations of the bridge shelter at Golden Hall. Father Joe's Villages is committed to achieving the best outcomes for our neighbors experiencing homelessness. Our sincerest thanks, and that concludes the comment.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you, Mr. Lovell, for submitting your comments. Lisa, please proceed with your presentation when you are ready.
Good morning again. With me is Casey Snell. I will go to slide 2, please. The Housing Commission administers the agreements for the city's homeless shelters and services programs based on a memorandum of understanding with the city that first went into effect on July 1st, 2010. In June 2019, the City Council approved the current MOU through June 30th, 2020 with 4 additional option years. In November 2017, the Housing Commission Board, Housing Authority, and City Council authorized a separate memorandum of understanding between the city and the Housing Commission for the oversight and administration of the city's 3 bridge shelters, which has been approved by the Housing Authority in 12-month terms. Approving execution of the bridge shelter MOU and operating agreements will extend the term through June 30th, 2021, and aligns with the current bridge shelter operating agreements. Next slide, please. The city's bridge shelter program uses the Housing First model to offer safe, low-barrier temporary shelter and services to individuals and families experiencing homelessness, while they work with staff to identify an appropriate permanent or longer-term housing solution. The Housing Commission currently contracts with 3 providers to operate 4 bridge shelters in the city of San Diego, which provide a total of 951 shelter beds. The shelter operated by Father Joe's Villages provides 288 beds for single women, families with children, and transitional aged youth. Currently, the Father Joe's shelter operating at the Convention Center supports single adults of all ages, including transitionally aged youth, as does Alpha Project Shelter at the Convention Center. The families at Father Joe's Golden Hall Shelter were all transitioned to hotels under COVID guidelines at the end of March and have been matched to rapid rehousing resources through the coordinated entry system. Alpha Project operates the shelter for single adults, which provides 324 beds. Veterans Village of San Diego operates the Veterans Shelter and provides 200 beds. The newest bridge shelter is operated by Alpha Project and provides 139 beds to serve flexible populations. It's of note that in the Convention Center project, Alpha Project can serve up to 795 beds. Veterans Village of San Diego can serve up to 216, and Father Joe's Villages can serve up to 486 beds at that location. Next slide, please. As part of the Bridge Shelters program design, persons experiencing homelessness within the city of San Diego who have been matched to a housing resource through the coordinated entry system are prioritized for shelter entry. The coordinated entry system's by name list prioritizes persons in the homeless management information system who have active profiles within the past 90 days and are ranked on the list based on a variety of factors, including vulnerability assessments, whether they have experienced chronic homelessness, and active case conferencing, which active case conferencing with providers working with clients. When bed availability exists, unsheltered persons who are highly vulnerable are prioritized for placement, and staff provide client-centered case management and case conference with the Regional Task Force on the Homelessness staff to determine the potential for placement on the by name list or to identify other appropriate housing solutions to meet residents' needs. I'm going to hand it over to Casey and mute myself.
In addition to basic hygiene and shelter services, residents are supported by a variety of stabilization supportive services. Next slide. These resources include, but are not limited to, crisis intervention and homeless diversion, intake assessment triage, case management and housing navigation, case conferencing, employment opportunities, healthcare and behavioral health services, and connection to mainstream resources such as benefits and referrals to community resources. These services are enhanced through the organization's working relationships and formal agreements with partnering service providers, community health clinics, local government, and philanthropy. An important component of the program model also is the proactive strategies and actions that are conducted to ensure a clean and safe environment both in and around the bridge shelter sites. Operators are committed to leveraging existing resources while empowering bridge shelter clients and existing personnel to ensure that the program has a positive impact on the surrounding community. A few examples of the strategies that the operators implemented to achieve this goal are development, implementation, and enforcement of good neighbor policies, participation in community meetings, and peer-to-peer outreach and engagement focused on individuals experiencing homelessness in and around the surrounding community. Next slide. The recommended operators of the Newton Avenue and Golden Hall Bridge Shelter were identified through a competitive procurement process. On January 24th, 2020, 2 formal requests for proposals were issued, one for each shelter. 106 vendors were notified through the Planet Bids website using both the Housing Commission and city portals. A pre-proposal meeting was held on January 30th, 2020 with prospective respondents, and 2 proposals were received by the deadline of February 21st, 2020. A source selection committee evaluated, scored, and ranked the responses and is recommending that the contracts be awarded to Alpha Project for the Newton Avenue site and to Father Joe's Village for the Golden Hall site. Next slide, please. Alpha Project is one of San Diego's most established social service providers with more than 20 years of experience meeting the needs of individuals and families experiencing homelessness. Through its array of housing and supportive services, Alpha Project is able to serve more than 4,000 men, women, and children annually. Since 2017, the organization has operated the city's largest bridge shelter, the single adult shelter located at 16th and Newton, which provides 324 beds. Alpha Project follows the Housing First model, which recognizes the need to provide housing and shelter without precondition in addition to ongoing supportive services. Alpha Project, its mission is mission-driven to both serve and employ persons with lived experience and places emphasis on ensuring their programs are a positive influence for the communities in which they operate. In addition to its portfolio of interim shelters, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing programs, Alpha Project coordinates the availability of an array of services for clients to utilize, including substance abuse treatment, employment readiness and placement, transportation assistance, and healthcare, to name a few. Next slide, please. For 70 years, Father Joe's Villages has empowered individuals and families experiencing homelessness and poverty to achieve self-sufficiency. Father Joe's Villages is one of San Diego's largest residential homeless service providers and houses more than 2,000 persons daily, typically serving more than 14,000 individuals experiencing homelessness annually. In addition, Father Joe's Villages operates a variety of programs, including transitional housing, rapid rehousing, interim housing, permanent supportive housing, affordable housing, the day center, the meal program, inclement weather bed program, and public restroom program. Since 2017, the organization has operated the city's bridge shelter for single women, families and children, and more recently, transitionally aged youth, located at Golden Hall, which provides 288 beds. In addition to its program portfolio, Father Joe's Villages offers services for clients such as mental health counseling, substance abuse treatment, education, outreach, and many more services. Father Joe's Villages also follows the Housing First model and provides housing and shelter without preconditions. Next slide. Due to the planned sale of the property where the Veterans Bridge Shelter is currently located, the Housing Commission determined a sole source justification procurement process was the best approach to awarding the contract. Veterans Village of San Diego is experienced with operating the bridge shelter and has developed important relationships with clients through the provision of services and daily operations. Veterans Village is positioned to effectively address any client concerns related to the relocation of the bridge shelter and can continue to operate with minimal interruptions imposed by the move. For these reasons, staff is recommending approval of the sole source justification. Next slide. Veterans Village is an established provider in San Diego County with almost 40 years of experience meeting the needs of veterans experiencing homelessness. The organization provides housing and supportive services to more than 3,000 veterans annually. Since 2017, the organization has operated the single adult veteran bridge shelter located at 2081 Sports Arena Boulevard, which provides 200 beds to veterans. In addition to operating permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, and bridge housing programs, Veterans Village coordinates services to clients such as case management, employment and training, and mental health services. Next slide. Alpha Project is the operator of the fourth bridge shelter located at 1710 Imperial Avenue. Alpha Project was recommended for contract award in October 2019 utilizing a competitive procurement process. The Board of Commissioners and City Council approved the selection. The initial contract term is October 16th, 2019 through June 30th, 2020, and there are 2 one-year options to renew the contract. Next slide. Staff recommends exercising the first one-year option to renew the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. The program site is leased by the city and operated by Alpha Project through an occupancy agreement between the 2 entities. Next slide. The next 2 slides detail the anticipated budget amounts from the tables detailed in the staff report. The budget for fiscal year 2021 to operate the Newton Ave site is $6,403,714 and will be funded with the State Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program, or HAP, funds and Homeless Emergency Assistance Program, or HEAP funds allocated to the city. The budget to operate the Golden Hall site in fiscal year 2021 is $4,747,087 and also will be funded by HAP and HEAP funds. Although funds to continue operation through the following 2 fiscal years have not yet been identified, it is anticipated that the City of San Diego will allocate funding for this purpose as part of the annual budget process. Option years will only be exercised contingent upon the appropriation of funds by the City of San Diego. Next slide, please. The budget to operate the Veterans Bridge Shelter for 6 months in fiscal year 2021 is $1,955,433 and will be funded with city general funds. The budget to operate the Imperial Avenue site in fiscal year 2021 is $2,811,328 and will be funded with HAP and HEAP funds. As mentioned in the previous slide, it is anticipated that the City of San Diego will commit state HAP and HEAP funding toward future option year renewals, and option years will only be exercised contingent upon the appropriation of these resources by the City of San Diego. Next slide. Turn it over back to Lisa.
You're muted, Lisa. Sorry.
Sorry, I thought I had unmuted myself. I apologize. Thank you. Today, we're asking the Board of Commissioners to recommend that the Housing Authority take the following actions as detailed in the staff report and on the following slides. Approve an operating agreement with Alpha Project for initial term of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, with 2 one-year options to renew to operate the city's bridge shelter located at 1501 Newton Avenue or alternative locations as designated by the City of San Diego, and authorize the execution of an agreement with Alpha Project in the amount of $6,403,714.32 for an initial operating period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, and an annual operating budget amount for subsequent option years to provide bridge housing and emergency shelter services to persons experiencing homelessness in the City of San Diego. Next slide, please. Approve an operating agreement with Father Joe's Villages for an initial term of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, with 2 one-year options to renew to operate the city's bridge shelter located at 202 C Street or alternative locations as designated by the City of San Diego, and authorize the execution of an agreement with Father Joe's Villages in the amount of $4,747,087.40 for an initial operating period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, and an annual operating budget amount for subsequent option years to provide bridge housing and emergency shelter services to persons experiencing homelessness in the City of San Diego. Next slide, please. Approve a 6-month operating agreement with Veterans Villages of San Diego for a term of July 1st, 2020 through December 30th, 2020 to operate the City of San Diego's bridge shelter located at an interim site location as designated by the City of San Diego, and authorize the execution of an agreement with Veterans Village of San Diego in the amount of $1,955,443.05 for 6 months for the operating period of July 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020 to provide bridge housing and emergency shelter services to persons experiencing homelessness in the City of San Diego. Next slide, please. Approve exercising the first of 2 one-year options to renew and enter into an operating agreement with Alpha Project for the term of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 to operate the City of San Diego's bridge shelter located at 1710 Imperial Avenue or alternative locations as designated by the City of San Diego, and authorize the execution of an agreement with Alpha Project in the amount of $2,811,328.25 for the operating period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 to provide bridge housing and emergency shelter services to persons experiencing homelessness in the City of San Diego. Next slide, please. Also authorize the Housing Commission's President and Chief Executive Officer to execute all documents necessary and or appropriate to implement these approvals in a form and format approved by General Counsel. Authorize the President and CEO of the Housing Commission or designee to substitute funding sources and or increase compensation by not more than 20% of the total agreement amount for the proposed agreement, if necessary, without further action by the board, but only if and to the extent that funds are determined to be available for such purposes. Next slide, please. And finally, staff also requests that the Housing Commission recommend that the Housing Authority and the City Council Authorize the execution of the third option and seventh amendment to extend the memorandum of understanding between the city and the Housing Commission for the oversight and administration of the city's bridge shelters, including removing any references related to oversight and administration of the city's Storage Connect Center, which under a separate approval request will become a standalone MOU. Next slide, please. This concludes our presentation, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
This is Commissioner Davis. I have a question. Do the bridge shelter programs have a policy regarding COVID-19 testing? And if they do, what do they do if someone tests positive?
So the City of San Diego and the County Public Health Department have a policy in regards to COVID-19 testing. Their goal is to get to close to 100% testing of shelter residents. Right now at the convention center site, testing is running on a bi-weekly basis every 2 weeks, where the goal is to test everybody in the shelter site. If someone tests positive, that test usually comes back within 24 to 72 hours, depending on the testing timeframe. That person is identified. They are identified within the shelter. Public health escorts them to the medical hall, which is a separate hall within the convention center. They are placed into an isolation tent, and this is a medical isolation tent that then gets cleaned by hazmat afterwards. And they are transitioned from that tent shelter, that tent isolation tent, to a hotel that is managed and contracted by the County of San Diego to support their health needs until they are no longer a health threat. We also do public health screenings of every shelter resident on a daily basis. So generally speaking, someone who tests positive is showing no signs or symptoms, because those signs or symptoms are checked on a daily basis.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lisa and Casey. Any further questions?
I'll make a motion to approve. Commissioner Mitchell.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Commissioner Davis, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Mitchell and a second by Commissioner Davis to approve item 106. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion.
Ryan, I've got just a couple more questions if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Did I hear correctly? We're approving it. We're looking at a total of 981 beds in our various bridge shelters. Lisa, is that right?
Right. In their traditional setting, that would be the case. Right now, because the shelter providers are at the convention center site, the maximum number of beds is 1,495, and we're just under 1,300 occupancy as of this morning.
Thank you. That was my follow-up question. Just ballpark for those 981, if we were in a relatively normal situation, are those almost always 100% full?
Yes.
Okay. And then I was wondering if maybe we could just talk through what the renewal or extensions would look like next year, if that will come back to our full board. It looks like that we're moving forward with essentially a 2-year contract with Alpha Project now, essentially approving the second year with this action today. Is that right? And if you could just walk me through that.
Yes. So this is for the new contracts that are coming in place. It's an initial 1 year with 2 option years. However, historically and currently the case is that for every exercising of an option year, we bring it back to the board and to the Housing Authority for approval. So we would be back next late May or early June for the same purpose.
Thank you. That concludes my questions.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Mitchell and a second by Commissioner Davis. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Commissioner Akers.
I approve.
Commissioner Davis.
I approve.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
I also vote to approve. All commissioners have voted in favor. No commissioners have opposed. The vote carries unanimously. Moving on to item 107, the approval of fiscal year 2021 operating agreement for the City of San Diego Safe Parking Program and execution of the Memorandum of Understanding between the San Diego Housing Commission and the City of San Diego for the oversight and administration of the Safe Parking Program. No public comments were submitted for this item. Lisa, you may begin when you are ready.
Thank you. With me again is Casey Snell, our Director of Housing First Administration. Next slide, please. Wonderful. The City of San Diego began administering the Safe Parking Program effective July 1st, 2018, after Mayor Kevin Faulkner announced the intent to incorporate and expand the program into the city's homeless services programs. Jewish Family Services, or JFS, has operated the Safe Parking Program since implementation. In spring 2020, the city expressed the intent to transfer the administration of the Safe Parking Program to the Housing Commission. Since JFS is the current program operator and is compliant with the city contract, the Housing Commission is using Procurement Policy 9.4 to procure JFS as the operator using a sole source justification process. Next slide, please. The city's Safe Parking Program provides a safe place to park and sleep for persons experiencing homelessness within the city. During program participation, clients working with staff to transition to longer-term or permanent housing. The program uses the Housing First model to offer safe, low-barrier entry into the program. Case management and other supportive services are available to individuals and families while they work with staff to secure housing. Services include housing navigation and case management. Lola and her family that are pictured in the picture on your screen stayed in the Safe Parking Program before being connected to the Housing Commission and moving into a Housing Commission-owned apartment. Next slide, please. JFS has served individuals and families in San Diego for more than 100 years. JFS serves the community by focusing on 3 core foundations for delivering services: economic stability, personal well-being, and community connection. JFS serves more than 40,000 individuals on an annual basis. In addition to operating the Safe Parking Program since July 2018, JFS operates programs targeted specifically to children and youth, adults and families, elderly individuals, and refugees and immigrants. Services offered to JFS clients include basic needs, crisis intervention, mental health, resource navigation, and case management, to name a few. Services are aligned with Housing First principles and are offered without any preconditions. I'm going to hand it over to Casey.
Next slide, please. Lisa, can you, sorry. The Safe Parking Program offers safe, low-barrier shelter option to prepare persons experiencing homelessness to transition to a more permanent housing solution. Individuals and families enrolling in the Safe Parking Program are entered into the coordinated entry system and are further assessed for prioritization of housing resources based on the stated community standards. The service model used ensures the most vulnerable clients are served, clients are moved into appropriate housing as available, and the client's needs are met quickly. Next slide, please. The menu of supportive services offered by the Safe Parking Program include access to mainstream resources and referrals, case management, housing navigation, basic needs services, and more. Next slide, please. As part of the ongoing program administration, SDHC requires monthly data reporting and data collection tools developed by Homeless Housing Innovations Division Senior Programs Analysts. These monthly data collection tools collect information on how the operator is performing against contracted program expectations, as well as other data related to population demographics and homelessness status. Contracted program performance expectations for the Safe Parking Program include data related to program exits. It is expected that at least 30% of all program participants exit to permanent or other longer-term housing, and less than 20% leave the program due to non-compliance with program rules. Length of stay should not exceed an average length of 150 days for persons exiting the program to permanent housing. Housing stability measurement should demonstrate that no more than 5% of clients exiting to permanent housing return to homelessness within 6 months of exiting the program. And finally, at least 85% of participants should have service housing plans initiated within 72 hours of enrollment. The data collection tools collect significantly more data on program activity and population demographics, but the metrics noted above are the key areas of focus related to the program performance and are based on national best practice for similar program types. Next slide, please. This slide details anticipated budget amounts from the tables detailed in the staff report. The budget for fiscal year 2021 to operate the safe parking program is $956,921. The Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program will fund fiscal year 21 operations. Future funding is contingent upon the appropriation of funds by the City of San Diego. Next slide, please. Today, we are asking the board to recommend that the Housing Authority of the City of San Diego take the following actions. Authorize the Housing Commission's President and Chief Executive Officer or designee to execute an agreement with Jewish Family Service using a sole source justification procurement method for an initial term of July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, with 2 one-year options to renew to operate the City of San Diego safe parking program located at 8804 Balboa Avenue, 9882 Arrow Drive, and 2250 Mission Village Drive, on terms and conditions as set forth in the agreement, as it may be amended upon advice of the Housing Commission's General Counsel, in the amount of $956,921 for the operating period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. Funding will consist of HAP funds and the amount of $921, for fiscal year 2021 operational budget allocated by the Housing Commission contingent upon appropriation of said funds by the City of San Diego. Next slide, please. Authorize the Housing Commission to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the City of San Diego for an initial 1-year term with 2-year options to renew for the oversight and administration of the safe parking program. Authorize the Housing Commission's President and Chief Executive Officer or designee to execute all necessary documents and instruments that are necessary and or appropriate to implement these approvals in a form and format approved by General Counsel, and to take such actions necessary and or appropriate to implement these approvals. Next slide, please. And authorize the Housing Commission's President and CEO or designee to substitute funding sources and or increase compensation by not more than 20% of the total agreement amount of the proposed agreement if necessary, without further action by the Housing Commission's Board of Commissioners, but only if and to the extent that funds are determined to be available for such purposes. We are further asking the board recommend that the San Diego City Council authorize the City of San Diego to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Housing Commission for an initial 1-year term with 2 one-year options to renew for the oversight administration of the safe parking program. Next slide. This concludes our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Lisa and Casey. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Commissioner Hester.
Casey, thank you for that presentation. Can you repeat the addresses of the location of the safe parking programs, please? I caught the 8804 Balboa. I know there's one on Arrow Drive, and then I didn't catch the third one.
Absolutely. There's one on, yes, on Balboa Avenue at the main campus of JFS, the Arrow Drive location, and Mission Village Drive by the stadium.
What is the number again? That's what I'm looking for. The Arrow Drive.
Oh, the Arrow Drive. It's 9882 Arrow Drive.
And the Mission Village one?
Sorry, I missed the first part of the question. Can you repeat? Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened.
It's okay. I was just asking for the address of the safe parking program. So I got 8804 Balboa, 9882 Arrow Drive, and then the third address for Mission Village I'm still missing. So
it's 2250 Mission Village Drive.
2250. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sorry
for that.
Any other questions? I appreciate, I think this is a great program, and I appreciate the amount of data that we're able to collect and how we're able to see the outcomes in this. I think, further down the road, I mean, all these programs are new, relatively speaking, and just being able to monitor that on an ongoing basis, I'm sure that in future years will help inform how we handle these programs and these services and make them better and make them as effective as possible. So I'm always very, it's great to see things like, only 5% who exit are returning to homelessness within that period of time. I mean, things like that are just wonderful to see that we're on the right track there. With that said, if there's no further questions or discussion, do we have a motion on the item?
I'll motion, Ryan. Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second Commissioner Davis.
Okay, great. We have a motion by Commissioner Hester, a second by Commissioner Davis to approve item 107. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Commissioner Akers?
Dion had to step off the line, please.
Got it. And it looks like we don't have Commissioner Mitchell either anymore. Chuck, are we okay on quorum?
Yeah, you'll have just 4. It'll be you,
Okay.
Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Hester, and Commissioner Hubbard.
Okay. Great. Commissioner Davis?
I approve.
Commissioner Hester?
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard?
Aye.
And I will also vote in favor. All commissioners present have voted in favor. No commissioners opposed. The vote carries unanimously with 4 votes and no opposition. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 108 regarding the approval of contract renewal between San Diego Housing Commission and Mental Health Systems to operate the City of San Diego's transitional storage centers, and the approval of proposed memorandum of understanding between the Housing Commission and the City of San Diego for the provision of transitional storage centers. No public comments were submitted for this item. Lisa, you may begin again when you are ready.
Thank you. Next slide, please. In his State of the City address in January 2018, Mayor Kevin Faulkner announced the plans for the Storage Connect Center. The center opened on June 13th, 2018 at 116 South 20th Street. On November 18th, 2019, a second facility, the Storage Connect Center 2, opened at 5453 Leah Street. The centers help keep homeless San Diegans' belongings off of the streets, sidewalks, and storefronts by providing a safe place for persons experiencing homelessness to keep their belongings as they look for work, attend classes, meet with service providers, or otherwise attend to personal needs. These centers augment existing storage center services that have been operated by Think Dignity since 2011. The Storage Connect Centers meet a need within the homeless community and help the city to provide a clean and sanitary public environment for all San Diegans. Next slide, please. Mental Health Systems, or MHS, was the selected operator for the Storage Connect Center 1 in March 2018 through a competitive procurement process led by the San Diego Housing Commission in conjunction with the City of San Diego. MHS is a provider with extensive experience in working with the homeless population through direct client services and has demonstrated a clear commitment to both proactive community engagement as well as having a positive impact on the surrounding neighborhoods. Storage Connect Center 1 opened on June 13th, 2018, and provides up to 500 storage bins available for persons experiencing homelessness. The Storage Connect Center 2 opened on November 18th, 2019, and currently has 116 storage bins on site and has capacity to increase to 500 bins. The Storage Connect Center 1 is open Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. The Center 2 is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Next slide, please. To proactively address community concerns, several good neighbor policies are built into the operating contract requirements. MHS staff work in various capacities to best serve clients, maintain a clean and safe environment, and conduct proactive outreach in the surrounding communities. MHS provides a dedicated operator contact and coordinates with other city departments like the San Diego Police Department Homeless Outreach Team and the City of San Diego's Environmental Services Departments. Next slide, please. Staff from the centers and the city's bridge shelters regularly coordinate outreach and engagement activities in the areas surrounding the center to engage individuals experiencing homelessness and offer services. MHS staff also engage with community members they encounter to provide information and gather input. The centers both have security measures in place, and the San Diego Police Department coordinates ongoing law enforcement and security presence with the center's security on a daily basis. MHS holds monthly community meetings for both storage center sites to provide community members with an opportunity to share concerns and ideas, and allows project partners to share information and updates with the community. Monthly meetings include ongoing attendance by Housing Commission staff and city representatives from the San Diego Police Department, Environmental Services Department, and the Mayor's Office. During the COVID-19 health crisis, the community meetings have been held via telephonic conference calls. In addition, the Housing Commission hosts a dedicated phone line available to community members to raise questions or concerns. Next slide, please. The proposed contract renewal for the Storage Connect Center 1 would continue operations at the current capacity of 500 storage units at that center. The proposed initial contract execution for the Center 2 would continue operations at the current capacity of 116 storage units with the ability to increase to 500 bins. As of April 30th, 2020, the Storage Connect Center 1 had a waiting list of 35 individuals experiencing homelessness, and the Center 2 does not have a waiting list at this time. Next slide, please. I'm going to mute myself and hand it over to Casey.
Due to the pending transfer of the Center 2 agreement to the Housing Commission, outcomes data for the Center 2 is unavailable for inclusion in this presentation. The data outcome slides in this presentation capture data from the original Storage Connect Center 1 from program opening in June 2018 to April 30th, 2020. This slide shows the daily new client enrollments from Center 1, again from June 13th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. In the first year of operation, the center conducted 899 new client enrollments. Next slide. This slide shows the daily new client enrollments from July 1st, 2019 through April 30th, 2020. In its second year of operation through April 30th, the center has conducted 504 new client enrollments. Next slide, please. This slide indicates the number of times clients return to access their stored belongings from center opening to June 30th, 2019. In the first year, there were 26,277 return visits from enrolled clients. Next slide, please. This slide indicates the number of times clients return to access their stored belongings within this fiscal year, so July 1st, 2019 through April 30th, 2020. In its second year through April 30th, there were 31,736 return visits from enrolled clients. As of April 30th, 2020, a total of 478 clients are enrolled in utilizing the Storage Connect Center. Next slide, please. In addition to providing storage space for individuals experiencing homelessness, one of the program's functions is to connect their clients with mainstream supportive services that will assist with their efforts to obtain stable housing. Since opening, the center has provided 135 referrals to healthcare, 202 referrals to housing search and information, 170 referrals to income support and employment, and 148 referrals to mental health and substance use disorder services. Next slide, please. Since opening, 7% of all clients who have been served by the center have identified as veterans, 32% identify as 55 years of age and older, and 4% identify as transitional age youth or 18 to 24 years of age. In addition, 36% of all clients served by the center identify as chronically homeless, and 23% of all clients identify as individuals with a mental health need. Next slide, please. The cost to operate the Center 1 annually includes the lease of the original center space, as well as the operating costs and original tenant improvement cost. The total cost to operate the Center 1 in its first year was $1,426,729.26. The cost to operate the center in year 2 was $1,190,828.40. And the cost to operate the center in year 3 is $1,249,942. Next slide, please. The fiscal year 2019 to 2020 contract term between the city and MHS for the Center 2 was originally from November 18th, 2019 to November 18th, 2020. The city will terminate their contract term on June 30th, 2020 to allow the Housing Commission to assume contract administration of the Center 2. The budget amount reflected in the slide for the first year operating agreement is prorated to reflect the early termination of the city's contract term. The cost to operate the Center 2 in fiscal year 2021 is $720,664. Next slide, please. Staff requests that the Housing Commission recommend the Housing Authority of the City of San Diego to take the following actions. Upon the execution of a homeless housing assistance and prevention program memorandum of understanding between the City of San Diego and the Housing Commission, approve the execution of the second one-year renewal option and third amendment of the agreement with Mental Health Systems contingent on necessary City of San Diego approvals, if any, to operate the Center 1 for a term of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. With a corresponding budget at current capacity of 500 storage units at any one time with an annual budget amount of $1,249,942 on terms and conditions as set forth in the agreement, as it may be amended upon advice of General Counsel of the Housing Commission. Next slide, please. Second, approve the execution of an initial one-year contract using a sole source justification contingent on necessary City of San Diego approvals, if any, to operate the transitional storage center currently known as the Storage Connect Center 2, located at Leah Street Terminus for a term of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, at current capacity of up to 500 storage units at any one time with an annual budget of $720,664 on terms and conditions as set forth in the agreement, as it may be amended upon advice of General Counsel of the Housing Commission. And third, authorize the President and CEO to take such actions as are reasonably necessary to implement the approvals referenced in this report. Next slide, please. And fourth, authorize the President and CEO of the Housing Commission or designee to substitute funding sources and or increase compensation by not more than 20% of the total agreement amount for the proposed agreement, if necessary, without further action by the board, but only if and to the extent that funds are determined to be available for such purposes. And finally, staff further requests that the Housing Commission recommend that the Housing Authority and City Council authorize approval of the proposed memorandum of understanding between the Housing Commission and the City of San Diego specific to the provision of both the transitional storage centers. Next slide, please. That concludes our presentation. We are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lisa and Casey. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Lisa? Okay, if there are no questions, do we have a motion on this item?
I move to approve Commissioner Davis.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hester. We have a motion to approve item 108 by Commissioner Davis and a second by Commissioner Hester. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Commissioner Davis?
I approve.
Commissioner Hester?
I approve.
Commissioner Hubbard?
Aye.
I also approve the, we have 4 votes in favor, no opposition. The motion carries with all 4 commissioners present voting in favor. Item 109, but before I go to that, I would like, or if Rick would like to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to do a shout out to staff and point out to the board members just what an excellent job our folks are doing in the homelessness arena. You know, this is still a relatively new line of business for us. We stepped into this arena in 2010 when then Mayor Sanders' office asked us to take over oversight of the winter shelters, and then the winter shelters. We also in 2010 got approval from HUD to utilize certain of our moving to work funds to help support homelessness activities. We've then moved incrementally more and more into this arena pretty much every year over the last 10 years. A big step forward was our Housing First San Diego plan, which we kicked off in November of 2014. You all will remember that this current year was the first year that we exceeded $100 million a year in terms of the funding that we put out for the homelessness arena. If you look at, and June has turned out to be kind of the reauthorization month for homelessness activities for the following fiscal year. Hence all the issues before you today. I see Lisa smiling. This was a biggie for her, for us, and this is only going to grow in my estimation. Every time the city needs to address this issue for implementation, to make it work, they turn to us. and that's not going to change. I think that would be a fair estimation, more than a guess, that there will be additional homelessness activities coming our way going forward, including the hotel motels issue that we've already spoken about to some extent, that will be coming back, I'm sure, later this summer to you all. So just a shout out to Jeff Davis, to Lisa, to Azucena, Suket, Emily, Mike, all the senior staff leadership making this work. They're doing a good job, and I'm very proud of them. Thank you, sir, for letting me say that.
I think I speak for the entire board when I echo your appreciation for the amazing work that all the staff are doing. And I hate that we have to go through these things so fast, but we're doing so much stuff. We got to keep it moving. So I think there'd be plenty for us to spend 10 minutes on each item, going through all the amazing work that's being done and giving all the credit that is due. So we'll just let this stand in for all of that. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay, thank you. Item 109, this is our workshop on the City of San Diego COVID-19 Emergency Rental Assistance Program. No public comments were submitted for this item. Lisa and Azucena will be doing this presentation. You may begin when you are ready.
Good morning. This is Lisa Jones again, and with me is Azucena Valladolid, Senior Vice President of Rental Assistance and Workforce Development. We're here today to discuss the City of San Diego COVID-19 Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which the Housing Commission will administer. Next slide, please. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the federal government passed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, otherwise known as the CARES Act. The CARES Act was signed into law on March 27th and provides a wide range of funding relief, such as the economic impact payments and small business loans. The CARES Act also provides payments to state, local, and tribal governments navigating the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak. Governments are to expend these funds on efforts directly related to expenses incurred and expected due to COVID-19. Next slide, please. Tens of thousands of San Diegans were and are still negatively impacted by COVID-19. Many households continue to struggle financially and are looking for assistance to help pay their rent and household expenses. To protect renters who would otherwise face eviction, the City Council took swift action and enacted an eviction moratorium, which is in effect through June 30th, 2020. When the moratorium expires, households have until September 25th, 2020 to pay all unpaid rent or face an eviction. The City Council and Mayor's Office are focused on expanding support for renters impacted by COVID-19 and have expressed a commitment to support low-income renters who need financial assistance to stabilize their housing through an emergency rental assistance program. Next slide, please. The City Council has taken several steps toward the development of a COVID-19 emergency rental assistance program. On May 7th, Councilmember Chris Ward issued a memo to the Mayor Kevin Faulkner with a list of requests for the utilization of the city's CARES Act funding. One recommendation was to establish a rent and mortgage relief program. On May 18th, Councilmember Scott Sherman issued a memo to city staff to develop a plan for utilizing available Community Development Block Grant CARES Act funding to create a robust rental assistance program for tenants facing hardship due to COVID-19. On June 2nd, the City Council voted to request that city staff work with the offices of the Mayor and Councilmember Ward, as well as Housing Commission staff, to create a COVID-19 emergency rental assistance program. This Monday, on June 8th, the City Council approved the city's fiscal year 2021 budget, which includes an allocation of $15.1 million in CARES Act funding for a COVID-19 emergency rental relief program. Next slide, please. Housing Commission staff, the City Council, and the Mayor's Office have been working on developing the emergency rental assistance program design. The design presented today is a preliminary proposal and will be further developed and implemented once the City Council approves the program and the city transfers funds to the Housing Commission to support administration and operation of the program. Housing Commission staff is submitting a program design recommendation to the city, which incorporates direction provided by city leadership and draws from the Housing Commission's expertise. I'll now hand it over to Azucena.
I had to unmute myself first. The purpose of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program is to provide one-time assistance to low-income renters to help mitigate the economic impacts of COVID-19 and keep low-income renters housed after the city's eviction moratorium is lifted. It is anticipated that the program will provide one-time fixed rent relief amounts of up to $4,000 per household. If all households received $4,000, the program can assist approximately 3,400 households. The rent relief payment would be made directly to the landlord or property management company and could be applied to rent arrears and upcoming rent. The application will be available online to mitigate the health risks related to COVID-19 and to provide rent relief as quickly as possible. To provide broad access, we also propose partnering with community-based organizations to provide services such as application assistance and tenant landlord legal services. Next slide, please. The current proposed eligibility criteria may change based on further council direction. Proposed criteria are based on input from city leadership, requirements of the currently identified funding source, and Housing Commission recommendations. Applicants must be a renter living in the city of San Diego, and their household income on January 1st, 2020 must be at or below 60% of the San Diego area median income, which is currently $69,300 a year for a family of 4. This is to reflect household income before change in employment due to the pandemic. Households who already have a rental subsidy are not eligible for the program. Types of rental subsidies include Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Assistance, Rapid Rehousing Assistance, or rental assistance from nonprofit agencies. Households currently receiving Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher assistance who have lost income due to COVID-19 already are eligible to receive rent relief under a separate hardship policy due to decrease in income. This reduces the participants' rent payment to 20% of their monthly adjusted income for 4 consecutive months. However, households who live in affordable housing units would be eligible for COVID-19 emergency rental assistance of $2,000 instead of $4,000. Their affordable unit is not as deeply subsidized as those in other programs previously noted, but they still have experienced a decrease in income due to COVID-19, and the affordable unit may no longer be affordable based on that decreased income. In addition, no other hardship exemption program exists for residents in affordable housing units. Households must verify that they do not have enough savings to meet their need. They can provide this verification by submitting information on their combined household savings, which cannot exceed $4,000. This is to target the program to households who are in most need of assistance. Due to federal funding requirements, households must have an eligible immigration status to be eligible for the program. Lastly, households must verify that they have experienced a financial hardship directly related to COVID-19 pandemic. This includes loss of income and increased medical expenses directly related to COVID-19. In anticipation of the large number of applications expected, staff proposed selecting eligible applications through a lottery system, then prioritizing those applicants. Based on input from city leadership, elderly households and families with minor children would be prioritized. Next slide, please. Partnership with community is important to ensure program is implemented successfully and creates broad opportunity to apply. The Housing Commission intends to contract with community-based organizations, or CBOs, for application assistance services and tenant landlord legal services. The application would only be available online, so CBO staff would help ensure that applicants have equal access to submit an application. The CBO would help applicants submit an application, answer questions, and provide access to applicants who do not have internet access or the ability to upload documents. The Housing Commission also anticipates contracting with a legal organization to provide tenant landlord legal assistance. Next slide, please. Staff is working on a robust communication strategy to ensure that information about the program is widely available. There will be a dedicated webpage that includes information about the program, the online application with detailed instructions on how to submit, and informational pages on other community resources. Partnership with the community also plays an important role. Staff will work with partner agencies to reach out to low-income households in need by posting links to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program webpage on their own sites and sending direct communication to their members who may be eligible to receive rental assistance. Next slide, please. The proposed application process is designed to be as uncomplicated as possible while providing a fair and, importantly, a rapid system to provide assistance to households in need. The application period would be open for a set period of time, which is when interested households can submit their applications. Once the application period is closed, the Emergency Rental Assistance Application System determines if an application meets basic eligibility criteria based on logic modeling built into the software and developed by staff. Applications that are eligible will be entered into a lottery, and those randomly selected will then be prioritized based on the categories that I previously mentioned. Housing Commission staff temporarily brought on for this program with oversight by experienced SDHC leads will then review the selected applications, and if the applications are approved, staff will coordinate with the tenant and landlord to disperse rental assistance payments. Next slide, please. The COVID-19 Emergency Rental Assistance Program has an accelerated timeline due to the immediate need of this assistance. Staff is working with the city to finalize the proposed program design. We anticipate that the program design and funding transfer will be presented to City Council for consideration on June 30th, 2020. If approved, the Housing Commission and City would execute an agreement for funds, and the Housing Commission will recruit and train temporary staff to support the program. Memoranda of Agreement for services will also be executed with community-based organizations to provide support services to applicants. Community outreach and communication about the program will start the first week of July and will continue throughout the month. We anticipate that the informational webpage for the program would launch the first week of July, and the application portal and submission period would potentially open in the later part of July, with initial disbursements beginning sometime in August and into September. Next slide, please. Staff has worked diligently on finalizing the proposed program design and program administration elements. Program design documents are being submitted to the city for consideration today, June 12, 2020, and will continue to evolve based on further input. The City Council is anticipated to consider a final program design on June 30th, 2020. The Housing Commission would launch recruitment, community outreach, and the informational webpage within days. Next slide. That concludes our presentation. Lisa and I are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments on this item?
This is Commissioner Hubbard. I have a question, Susanna. You were saying that this will be for not those who are in Section 8, but for those who are within the city that have their income below the stated percentage. I forgot what you said, but the stated percentage of AMI, and also for those who are living in low income units. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so go ahead, I'm sorry.
Now, the reason that was in the program design is the assisted clients, specifically the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher participants, already have a COVID-19 financial hardship policy that we enacted in March, which extends through July, which extends for 4 months. So if there is a family on our program that has experienced a financial hardship, then we will reduce their share of the rent to 20% of the income that they currently have. So there's an existing hardship that would cover those families that are receiving federal subsidy.
Okay, and this, people will know this. I'm sorry if you stated this in the presentation. People in the city who are low income will know this just through outreach, or how will that work?
So we are working on a pretty comprehensive community outreach plan, and we will be launching an informational page, and both of those strategies will include the eligibility criteria along with information on the program and how to apply. So we will be launching a communication plan and community outreach plan that will share what the eligibility criteria is, along with relying on our community partners to help get the word out as well.
Okay, thank you. I think this is a wonderful program. I'm happy to see assistance being given to those who aren't even on the Section 8 program, but are still low income. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yes, Commissioner Hester.
I'm really excited about this program, to the same sentiment as Commissioner Hubbard expressed. I'm curious about how the lottery system exactly is going to work, and then how and who community groups are you working with in terms of facilitating the application and that sort of thing.
Sure. So once the application goes live per se, renters would submit an application, and if they meet basic eligibility criteria, then the applicant portal will institute logic that was built into it and determine whether they meet the basic eligibility criteria. Those renters that meet the eligibility criteria will then be moved into what's like a lottery system. So families will be randomized and then selected. The reason why we are recommending that a lottery system be used is because we do anticipate that the need and the applications will by far surpass the number of applications that we can pay for and approve. So this gives a fair and equitable opportunity for families to apply and have an opportunity to be considered for the program. So the portal will actually randomize the families, and they will be ranked in order through a lottery system. And then the preferences will be instituted, which will then be finalized by City Council, which the preferences are. And so if additional funding is added into this program, the lottery system or the ranking would still exist, so then we can still select families in order as they were selected.
Thank you.
This is Lisa. I can speak to the community-based organizations a little bit. So one of the things that's critical at this time is making sure that we do our best to create a broad access to the program. Some folks may not have access to the internet or a computer in order to submit an application or upload documents. So we were working with community-based organizations whose doors are open. So that's where we're, so, and it's going to take some work to identify ones whose doors are open and have the capacity with COVID-19 precautions to have people come in, review their documents, upload their documents, and submit applications on their behalf. So we're also working with council members who know their districts well and can identify CBOs within their districts that have that capacity and have their doors open so that we can make sure that people have access.
Have there been any considerations with, there's a labor council, there's another organization that has access to people with need, so I want to put that out there as, I know that they are open, they're able to reach people who have been laid off, furloughed, et cetera, who are in need of this.
That's a great recommendation. Thank you so much.
Rick.
This is a wonderful program, and it's going to provide some needed help for some, as Keely said, some needy people. I need to point out a couple of things that are going to happen, though, based on their experience with these kinds of programs. The first that I would ask you all to be ready for, the first is that $15 million sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. This is not going to last very long. There will be people left out, whatever system we pursue, and we will set this up in as fair and objective a process as we can. We will make sure it's transparent, and Johanna, thank you for that suggestion. We'll certainly go that route as well in terms of outreach. But we need to expect that there will be disappointment from those who are not selected. That's just part of it. The second thing that need to advise the board is that I'll give you an anecdote. At the press conference last week, when we announced this, a question came from the press: how long will it take to administer this once we get into the new budget year? A couple of weeks? And I kind of laughed. I said no. There's an inverse relationship between how complicated we make this program and how long and how quickly we can get the money out the door. My response to the press is that we're not going to be at the front door of the building, the office building, on July the 1st handing out bags of money. It just doesn't work that way. What we need to do is develop a system that measures eligibility and then do cash transfer. And the more due diligence we put in, the longer it's going to take. Now, hopefully much of this can be automated and it can be very quick and simple. And again, this is a wonderful program. But I need you all to understand that there will be critical comments coming down the line. It's just going to happen. And hopefully we can minimize those. And I just had to say those things, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple questions, comments. So who will the payments be made to? Will it be the applicants selected?
So the payments will be dispersed directly to the landlord or the property manager.
Okay. So I want to commend staff on, I think that we're all very much on the same wavelength in terms of finding the most efficient and effective way to make this money stretch, because obviously this is a limited amount of money given the scope of the challenge. And then in addition to that, just from a broader perspective, I mean, these are all difficult choices we have to make with these funding choices. And I don't envy the situation that the city is in as they have to allocate these funds. We're on the one hand trying to figure out how to fund all of this permanent supportive housing, which we know that there is a huge gap between the need and what we have available at this moment. And so that's a big undertaking. On a larger sense, just the entire affordable housing universe is underfunded. We have lottery systems and waiting lists for people in regular times, let alone in difficult times. And then obviously this is trying to address an additional problem. So with that in mind, I do have a couple concerns here. So as I'm thinking this through, so we're issuing the payments to the landlords here. I just question, maybe staff knows, maybe doesn't. Do we know what the average cost of an eviction is if you're a landlord, given that we're also in property management? I'm assuming we have some sort of idea. I know that it's a lengthy and costly process.
I can speak to that. This is Emily Jacobs. The typical legal expense, not counting staff time, and obviously the rent that we're not getting during that period, is just shy of $2,000.
Okay, so the legal cost is $2,000, and then presumably, and then how long does that take?
It's typically about a 90-day process, and of course, right now, none of those proceedings are going forward. Irregardless of the mandate, because of COVID, the courts aren't in session.
Got it. So obviously what this is trying to do is divert people away from an eviction scenario. It seems to me that, so if the cost is $2,000 in legal costs, let's just assume 3 months of lost rent, and that's if it goes along a normal time frame, let alone a delayed time frame. So this is a huge cost that a property manager or a property owner is avoiding anytime they can avoid having to go through the eviction process. And I think that's a really significant benefit that they're receiving that is not even reflected in the actual rent subsidy that they're going to be receiving in order to avoid that scenario. So what I'm leading up to here is, given how the policy is structured, is there any way that participating properties can share the cost if they are receiving payments, or is there some way that they can have some skin in the game with us if we're stepping in and helping people cover rent that they can't afford and avoid these eviction scenarios?
I can speak to that. That would be something that would require negotiations with the owner, and that would add a significant amount of time and administration to the process. Really, this rent relief program is all about rapidly providing relief. So that would probably be something that would not be worth the effort, quite frankly.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think that this sounds like it's in a great place given the short time frame that we're putting this together and the limited budget. I do just kind of want to echo what was said about how this is probably not going to be enough to address everything that it's intended to address here. So I hope that both the city council and all of us, if there is a phase 2 down the road at some point, maybe sort of considers how this is going to work too. Because the other factor that I want to make sure that we're considering is that we've had rising rent rates for a very long time. We're all aware there's a broader affordability problem. And while we certainly want to avoid every eviction that can possibly be avoided, I think that we also want to make sure that the market is reflecting the current economy. So if the economy right now cannot support the high rents that it's been supporting up to this date, I think that it would just be a shame if a program were implemented in a way that that buffered rents from coming down in the long run. Again, how exactly we do that without putting a bunch of evictions on the line, I realize that's not an easy thing to solve for. Yeah, Rick.
Ryan, I'll promise you staff will take one more look at that issue just to see if there's a quick systems way to deal with it. As Jeff just said, that's unlikely. We'll look at it. The term used in the finance world for dealing with financial shortcomings is a haircut. And what you're saying, does the landlord take a haircut on some of his loss in order to get some of the rest of it covered, which will stretch to more families? And we'll take another look at that to see if that can be done in a systemic, formulaic way. And we'll report back to you. I think it's a good idea, but we need to see how it works.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And one more follow-up question on this. So our landlords, when they receive these payments, presumably this eliminates their right to evict that tenant. Is it just doing that because it is bringing the tenant up to current payment, or is there any sort of waiver of their right to evict that is going along with the aid, with the payment that's being made?
Zaina or Lisa, do you know an answer to that?
So we have built into the plan to contract with a legal agency, like a nonprofit legal representative that can provide landlord-tenant resolution or mediation and conciliation. There may be circumstances where there may be other lease violations or eviction that's pending if the full amount isn't balanced. While we will not be in the middle and trying to resolve the eviction notices, we are in charge of dispersing rental assistance payments. If there are circumstances that require some type of litigation, mediation, conciliation, then we would refer both the landlord and the tenant to the legal entity that we contract with to provide assistance in that matter.
So I appreciate the complexity, and I think I opened a little bit of a Pandora's box here, but so would that mean that there could be scenarios in which a landlord receives this payment on behalf of a tenant, and the tenant is still evicted for other causes other than the shortfall that we are subsidizing?
Zeta and Lisa, we still got some details to work out on the implementation. That's correct?
Yeah. Yes, we do. I would say generally when the landlord starts accepting payment of back rent, that puts them in a
yes.
position to pursue eviction action.
And Ryan, just from a common sense standpoint, there's no way we're going to issue a payment on behalf of somebody who's going to be evicted anyway. No way. We'll figure out a way to build that in. But I think these are all good questions that come up anytime you design a new program. They're going to be what I call the so what questions. So what about this? So what about that? So what difference does it make? How does it impact? This is not simple. And there's another reason why it's going to take a while to implement it. So when you all start hearing complaints in mid-July that we don't have the money at the door yet, there's good reason. I suspect the money will be out the door more like, Jeff, what, September? August maybe?
Yeah, we're looking to begin payments sometime in August and then through September. Currently, the eviction moratorium allows for tenants to catch up with their rent by the end of September. So we're hoping to have these payments out by that time.
But for a landlord to receive payment, I would expect some sort of a quid pro quo that says family's okay up to that point. Now, what happens after that point, that's out of our hands. But there's no way in the world we're going to issue a payment that covers a partial rent and let somebody be evicted anyhow. I mean, we'll just build that into the system.
And I think Lisa's point is really well taken. If the issue is solely that they are behind in arrears on rent and they accept a payment from the Housing Commission for rental payments, they have basically lost their case for an eviction. Now, if there are other causes besides arrears, we are not currently looking to have the owner sign off all rights for eviction for other causes.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I will leave it at that. I think you see where I'm coming from here, which is you're already doing a fantastic job of figuring out how to make this money stretch as far as possible. And I just think part of that, I mean, given that the property owners are receiving arguably a greater benefit even than the renter because of the expenses that they're able to avoid, if this is to prevent evictions, then as much as we could ask of them, whether that be in foregoing their right to evict for a period of time greater than what has actually been covered in the rent, or whether that be a fee or some sort of cost share in addition to what they're paying, or a discount on the rent. But I mean, if there was something that we could get them to contribute as well, I think that would both help the money go further and hopefully help preserve anybody from facing eviction when possible. So thank you. Compliments to the staff on putting this together so quickly. There's no action item required on this item for today. So if there's no further questions, we will move on. I've requested a presentation on the informational report we received regarding the April 2020 reporting update from the City of San Diego's bridge shelter programs. Lisa, one more time, when you are ready, please begin.
Good morning. With me is Deanna Villanueva, Vice President of Housing First Programs, and also Casey Snell, Director of Housing First Administration. We are presenting today a review of the Bridge Shelter Informational Report and providing updates on the temporary transition of the Bridge Shelter programs to the San Diego Convention Center. Next slide, please. On March 20th, 2020, the City of San Diego, under the leadership of Mayor Kevin Faulkner and with the support of County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, implemented a homelessness emergency operations center in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. At that time, the mayor tasked a group of individuals from the city, county, and regional partners, including Keely Halsey, the mayor's chief of homelessness strategies, Tamara Kohler, the CEO of the Regional Task Force on the Homeless, or RTFH, and myself as the representative from the Housing Commission, to develop an implementation plan that could best meet the needs of the city's current shelter residents, to achieve the required social distancing necessary to help prevent the spread of COVID-19, and also determine ways to increase the availability of shelter beds, including critical access to hand washing, sanitation, and healthcare for those experiencing unsheltered homelessness. Over 2 days, the Convention Center plan developed, and on April 1st, 2020, the City of San Diego launched Operation Shelter to Home in partnership with the County of San Diego, the Housing Commission, RTFH, and the San Diego Convention Center. The program temporarily repurposes parts of the San Diego Convention Center as a shelter for single adults experiencing homelessness in the city. It is part of a new system-wide coordinated plan to assist sheltered and unsheltered individuals experiencing homelessness to remain healthy during the global pandemic, and supports a regional approach to address homelessness during the state of emergency. Next slide, please. The program centralized shelter staff from the city's bridge shelter programs into one location to ensure client services were maintained even with interim reductions in staffing levels due to COVID-19. Operation Shelter to Home continues to offer clients the same services they received at the bridge shelters, including 24-hour security, meals, showers, restrooms, laundry services, case management, and housing navigation. I'm going to hand it over to Casey.
Good morning. Operation Shelter to Home has also provided an opportunity to integrate County of San Diego public health nurses, behavioral health services, and primary care services into the shelter setting. Supportive services offered through various partners are also available throughout the shelter, providing an integrated service-rich environment to support shelter residents during the public health crisis. Individuals moved into the convention center in a phased approach to ensure needs and resources were scaled appropriately. Next slide, please. During phase one, between April 1st and April 8th, 765 individuals from the 4 bridge shelter programs, as well as a portion of the residents from the City of San Diego interim housing program operated by Father Joe's Villages, were relocated to the convention center to accommodate social distancing and enhance measures to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Next slide, please. Phase 2 started on April 10th as outreach teams began bringing individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness within the city to the convention center. Beginning April 15th, all intakes to Operation Shelter to Home were conducted through a centralized intake unit to facilitate a streamlined intake process for clients. The intake process includes COVID-19 symptom screening and additional general health and wellness screenings by County of San Diego public health nurses. Next slide, please. Once screenings are completed, the client is accompanied to their assigned shelter location, which is determined based on client preference and bed availability. During the health screening process, the public health nurses may note that the client would be better served at the City of San Diego's interim housing programs due to mobility issues or having high risk factors for COVID-19 due to age or an underlying health condition. The intake unit then facilitates placement of the client at the interim housing program based on client preference. Next slide, please. At full capacity, the shelter can support up to 1,495 residents. As of this morning, 1,297 individuals were residing at the shelter. To support this complex logistical operations of implementing a shelter of this scale that incorporates a variety of partners, including government and nonprofit agencies, public health, security, and other components, an incident command structure was created to support the project. Housing Commission staff oversee and support the service provider branch, which includes Alpha Project for the Homeless, Veterans Village of San Diego, Father Joe's Villages, Housing Navigation Unit, an Exit Strategies Resource Unit, an Outreach Strategies Unit, and an Intake Coordination Unit. 14 Housing Commission staff members support the service provider branch, as well as staff the Data Intelligence Unit. Staff coverage is 7 days a week. This incident command structure follows the same structure that all major emergency response activities follow and organizes the successful operation of the day-to-day shelter activities, including tactical planning to escalate and resolve issues, as well to plan for specific activities such as outreach, intake, and testing for COVID-19, addressing challenges or needs that occur, ensuring personal protective equipment is utilized, and all protective health and safety measures are followed, and coordinating across branches of the incident command structure, including the medical branch, security branch, safety and logistics sections to ensure smooth operations. I'll now hand it back to Lisa.
Thank you, Casey, for all the great work that you and your staff are doing. It's been a phenomenal project to be a part of so far. As part of developing the Convention Center Shelter project, we knew it was critical to already be working on the strategies needed to be able to turn the convention center back over for its intended use and identify alternative housing and shelter options for residents, but also to seize the opportunity to really test our systems, identify areas of change, and redesign and refine the current homeless crisis response system to create a better future state. It was clear that there was an opportunity in this unique environment to accelerate several of the foundational strategies of the City of San Diego's Community Action Plan on Homelessness, to implement a systems-level approach, create a client-centered homeless assistance system, improve the performance of the existing system, and increase access to permanent housing solutions. Part of this redesign of the system was to create an outreach policy group of subject matter experts to expand and enhance existing coordinated outreach activities and engage persons experiencing unsheltered homelessness throughout the city that were further marginalized and vulnerable due to increasing lack of access to resources under COVID-19 shelter-in-place restrictions. Coordinated outreach includes staff from Bridge Shelter outreach teams, the Downtown San Diego Partnership outreach team, San Diego Police Department Homelessness Outreach Team, non-city funded outreach, and representatives from County Behavioral Health, Whole Person Wellness, as well as many other agencies. Policy meetings to develop strategies, problem solve for challenges or needs, and coordinate outreach activities occur on a weekly basis. To support intake from the coordinated outreach activities, the Housing Commission also implemented and staffed a coordinated intake process at the shelter site. This created a single point of coordination for client choice-based shelter placement across all 3 bridge shelters at the convention center, as well as Path Connections and Father Joe's interim shelter, making access to a shelter bed much easier for persons in need. Next slide, please. Building on the same momentum that envisioned Operation Shelter to Home, a deep focus on increasing housing opportunities and transitioning persons experiencing homelessness into housing became a goal of the project partners. The San Diego Housing Commission and the Regional Task Force seized the opportunity in this unique environment to co-locate staff on site and work together to coordinate efforts and focus resources on strengthening housing system navigation. This included redevelopment of by name lists by shelter cohort to determine prioritization for coordinated entry system resources, strengthened partnerships and ongoing communication with housing resource agencies, developing policy asks to waive restrictive regulations, adjust practices and procedures, and streamline processes, and implementation of a high-level policy team that has the political support from city, county, and housing commission leadership to work outside of traditional lanes and problem solve quickly. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand it over to Deanna Villanueva.
You're on mute.
Oops, sorry about that. I got a little bit of a chance to practice right before me. So good morning, commissioners. This is Deanna Villanueva, and I'm currently serving as the lead for the Housing Navigation Team for Operation Shelter at Home. The Housing Navigation Team is composed of leadership and program staff from both the Housing Commission's Homeless Housing Innovations Division, as well as the Regional Task Force on the Homeless. Its main purpose is to permanently house residents of Operation Shelter at Home. The Housing Navigation Team has 2 core functions, so facilitating connections to critical housing interventions like vouchers and rental assistance programs, and conducting housing search and placement efforts for residents. Connecting residents to housing interventions like permanent supportive housing vouchers or rapid rehousing rental assistance is a critical first step to quickly and successfully house someone. Next slide, please. Since the launch of Operation Shelter to Home, the Housing Navigation Team has coordinated efforts across key partner providers and agencies throughout the region to direct resources to residents and streamline access to these essential housing interventions. Through these efforts, referrals and enrollments in housing interventions like permanent supportive housing vouchers, rapid rehousing, and alternative strategies have increased. For permanent supportive housing, partner agencies like the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, or the VA, county agencies like Behavioral Health Services, Housing and Community Development, Child Welfare Services, along with the Housing Commission's Rental Assistance Division, have collaborated with us to dedicate housing services and resources, streamline eligibility processes, and issue permanent supportive housing vouchers quickly. We anticipate that as a result of this collaboration and these efforts, there will be at least 400 residents served through permanent supportive housing vouchers for Operation Shelter to Home. Understanding the need for additional resources and answering the call from the mayor and RTFH, rapid rehousing providers throughout the region reassess their own staffing structures as well as their caseload limits to increase the number of households that they can enroll into their programs and serve through rapid rehousing. We anticipate as a result of those efforts as well that there will be at least 160 residents served through rapid rehousing programs. The Housing Navigation team continues to analyze the need of the residents and as a result has launched programs to fill gaps in housing interventions like our flexible shallow subsidy program. The need for housing interventions is not only great, but is also varied, and we strive to connect residents to the intervention that best meets their needs. The Housing Navigation team also provides and coordinates housing search and placement services for residents who are connected to a housing intervention. This includes recruitment efforts to partner with new landlords, like recently the mayor's call to action during his press briefing, as well as engaging in existing landlord partnerships. Once a resident is connected to a housing intervention, housing navigation services from our team can include meeting with the resident to outline their housing plan, to promote client choice and to increase the likelihood that they will accept the unit that's identified, coordinating with the housing service provider to determine type and amount of rental assistance provided through their program, locating and securing units through landlord engagement, coordinating unit viewings as needed between the landlord and property management company and the resident, assisting residents in completing and submitting rental applications along with verification and documentation, and also paying for application fees as needed, and advocating as needed with landlord and property management companies on behalf of the resident. In cases in which one-time move-in financial assistance is needed, the Housing Navigation team accesses the Housing Commission's Landlord Engagement and Assistance Program, or LEAPS, incentives and benefits for landlords.
Next slide, please. This final slides of our presentation provide background on how we have identified what the housing resource needs are and the success we have had to date. To understand what housing intervention or housing resource types are needed, we must understand the needs of the population we are serving. The Business Intelligence Unit of the Incident Command is staffed by 2 Housing Commission Senior Programs Analysts, and they run data samples and report out on a multitude of data sets both daily and weekly to help inform our work. The data on this slide is more current than what is contained in the Informational Board Report for the month of April. It is taken from the shelter population on June 4th, 2020, which consisted of 1,313 persons, 238 of whom were veterans and 1,075 of whom were non-veterans. The best way to determine what type of housing resources, and how many housing resources are needed to exit persons from shelter to housing, analysis was run on the demographics of the population. We look at age, disabling condition, chronic health conditions, severe mental illness, mental health, length of homelessness, chronic homelessness, substance use disorder, and income or lack thereof. Next slide, please. This slide details the analysis on the number of housing resources by type that are currently available in the system compared to the number of housing resources by type that are needed. This analysis is critical so that project partners know the number of additional housing resources that are needed to transition shelter residents to housing. Efforts can be made to identify funding opportunities, to develop those resources, and leadership can make informed decisions on how to best target available funds. Currently, there are 673 resources that have been identified in the system. With a need of 1,313, this identifies a gap of 640 housing resources not available in the system to meet the current population needs. The majority of the housing resources needed are permanent supportive housing at 543. Even though a gap in our resource availability exists, amazing headway has been made over the past 2 months since the Housing Navigation team was implemented. When the first 776 shelter residents transitioned to the convention center in early April, 51 were matched to a committed housing resource. As of June 9th, 2020, 553 individuals were matched to a committed housing resource and are in process of a housing placement, and 114 individuals have already been matched and housed. When you add those numbers together, that's 667 housing resources matched to specific individuals. compared to 51 at the onset of Operation Shelter to Home. That's a 765% increase. This type of achievement is possible because of the commitment and efforts of Housing Commission staff and strong project partners, and demonstrates what a focus on systems level approaches and coordination can accomplish. I am very appreciative of Deanna and the amazing results that her team and our partners are producing. Next slide, please. That concludes our presentation, and we're available to answer any questions.
Any questions from commissioners? Okay, I just want to say, thank you very much again to all the staff that have been working on this. I think this is incredible progress that's been made in a very short period of time. I don't think any of us would have opted to be in the situation where we have to set up the convention center shelter situation. But that being said, it's pretty incredible to see, what's coming out of it, both in terms of improving the systems around these services and the amount of data that we're getting. This is the first time that I personally have really felt like I could wrap my head around exactly where we were and what was needed. I mean, it just the numbers and the specificity just adds a lot of clarity to this situation when you look at it all in one big bucket here. The 760%. 65% increase is phenomenal. That's a lot of people that are moving into housing very quickly. And then, on the flip side of that, with the I don't have actually that number in front of me, but it was at 640. The shortfall was 640. I mean, that I think just having a specific number in front of us, and we know that these things are dynamic and they're changing, and our bigger picture planning is dealing with that. But being able to just sort of focus on what we need in the short period and the amount of progress you all have made very, very quickly is just incredibly encouraging at a moment where it's nice to have some encouragement. So if no one else has any questions or comments, I will wrap it up there. Let me grab my, no action is required on this item. Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Pressing the wrong button. Lisa had her hand up. I was trying to get your attention.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. Lisa, you're on mute.
Now I'm muted.
No, okay.
I also just wanted to share that when we refer to the San Diego Housing Commission and their team, this includes support from all of our divisions.
Yeah.
Our rental assistance division has done a phenomenal job issuing vouchers at an accelerated rate. Our real estate assets division has been working really closely with us on hotel motel as far as looking at that, and also with the own units that we oversee and administer. So this is very much a deeply coordinated effort with all hands on deck, and it's been a challenge, I know, for all of us in the COVID hardship times, but also a wonderful opportunity for us to work even more closely together. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone and all of the senior VPs that are help leading these efforts.
Rick.
Let me echo that and point out one other number as well in a minute. But when we set up the homelessness division of the Housing Commission, it was not a separate and apart group of folks. It's integrated in with the mainstream of what the agency's always done. A lot of what we use our vouchers for are homeless. A lot of what we use our real estate funding for is homeless. A lot of our support services throughout contracting, finance, IT, everything. Homelessness is a major part of what we do. And part of what Lisa's job is to run some parts of it that are separate and distinct, like a lot of what you approved today in terms of funding, but also to coordinate with others that come through the agency organically. So this is, it's not a bolt-on, it's a mixture, if you will, as a part of the organization. And Lisa, let me ask you another number I love to hear. If you go back to November the 12th, 2014, up to now, a little over 5.5 years, how many homelessness solutions have we achieved? And a homeless solution is getting somebody off a household off the street, or helping a household avoid the streets. I like to point this out because when you don't make the problem go away, people wonder what you've done. And this is 5.5 years of focused effort. Lisa, do you have a number handy? You're muted.
I got it. On April 30th, we were over 9,000 housing opportunities created.
And I've told staff and told our communications department to get ready. When we hit the 10,000 mark sometime later this year, we're going to note it publicly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all, and thank you to my commissioners Hubbard and Davis who have hung with us on this marathon meeting. I already conveyed my appreciation to our chair Stephanie for handing me a full deck of stuff to cover in my first meeting here. So thank you all for sticking with me. I hope we moved as quickly as possible. Appreciate you all indulging all of our questions. And I'm really optimistic and hopeful that the next meeting or two, we will have some hotel motel stuff to deal with, and we can just put a big fat dent in that 640 number real quickly. So on that note, if there's no other comments, that concludes our agenda, and this meeting is adjourned at, I don't know what time it is, 11:27. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day.